of your life. Hey, recording in progress. And hopefully, my hope for you is to do what I get to do, which is wake up every day and love what you do, and do something that you think is not only changing the world, but something that you really enjoy. So with that, essentially, I will pass it off to Jacob. The idea here is, build a challenge, build an app with stablecoins on Solana. That I think that will be something that's good for the world, good for you to learn how to build with Solana. It will also prepare you for the upcoming Colosseum Hackathon, and then also, whether if you want to start your own startup, join a startup, or maybe just work for an existing project in the Solana ecosystem, you'll be much better prepared to do that. So that's my thinking on all that. Thanks, guys.
We
God
need some,
bless America. Sorry.
we need some of your sound effects like the eagle going on in the
Yeah, I
background
know.
now.
I was trying to figure out how to do it, but I can't.
All right, cool. All right, and I'll introduce myself. So my name is Jacob Creech. I do developer relations here at Solana Foundation. Today we'll go through some different things that you can potentially do with stablecoins, plus show you just how to do development on Solana. Without further ado, I'll just get started with things. Out of curiosity, what years are y'all in college right now? Just go ahead and throw them in the chat. Okay, we have quite the range here. Just as a note, to add some more clarity to what Kevin has said. So right now, job market is really hot for Solana developers. We have a high demand for Solana developers, but a low supply. Um, what we see is like people going through training or boot camps or cohorts. About 34% of them end up getting a job right now, which is really high. So things like Turbine, which is one of the different boot camps or I guess cohorts on Solana, uh, they have a 6 week program and they have about 34% of the people going through that 6 week program get a job. So it's something to think about because I know a lot of y'all, especially the seniors, are looking at the tech job market, being like, what do I do next? This could be your stepping stone into the next thing, especially if you get on the Colosseum Hackathon. But let us start just doing a presentation. All right. So I'm not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to go through a bunch of things on Solana and I will take any questions as we do it. So feel free to drop questions in the chat if you have any questions as I'm going through the presentation. So first off, we're just going to go quickly like how it works and some things that you might need whenever you're building with stablecoins. So if you're not already familiar with Solana, I assume y'all are, but if you're not, what are the reasons why you should build on Solana? It's basically a fast confirmation time, low transaction fees, all while maintaining consensus across tons of validators. I believe this is actually 1,500 now, which is okay. We're fast, cheap. You can build real applications on it. That's like the big selling point of Solana. So if you're thinking of building in blockchain, the really only place that you can build today is Solana. It, in order to get any amount of users, you can see this when probably if you all are doing it. Um, if you've tried any Solana development or any Solana products, the UX of it is much better than anything else on any other chain. And it's because it has those technical advantages. And just to answer the question of someone that asked in the chat of what is the name of the boot camp, here is a link to it. They start their next cohort in April. So it's best to sign up now. There's a apply button on the little builder button. All right, cool. And then some other things that like help out on Solana, and this will kind of like help you understand like how you can use stablecoins for this specific challenge as well, is that we have something called localized fee markets. So being that Solana is multi-threaded, if you make transactions, and I'm assuming most of y'all are probably comp sci majors or similar, if you make transactions on other chains, they're all single threaded. So you have to wait for one transaction to complete before getting to the next one. Solana, they're multi-threaded. And what ends up being, they're multi-threaded based off of the account write locks, which is a very common thing you learn in comp sci, right? Um, So specific write locks might become more expensive than others. Um, if you're working on like a specific market that needs to get write locked a lot, that one becomes hot and gets more expensive while the rest of them stay low. That's why you can see fees on Solana, like the medium fee is still 0.0001 cents or whatever, but the average fee for a lot of people that are um, using these hot markets are they're paying a lot more. So, and I say a lot more, 0.0001 cents. So still ends up being cheap, but that is mostly because of these local feed markets, amongst a myriad of many other improvements. All right, so slideshow over. I'm just going to go into programming slide, and I like doing these things live because it's a lot more fun, interactive, rather than sitting through a yet another slideshow. I'm sure y'all have gone through that, plenty of those during classes today. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a token. We're going to have some fun. All right, so let me just make this bigger so y'all can see it. All right, so we'll clear it. Okay, so one of the things is, so there's two things you kind of need to do before you get started, is you're going to need this CLI called the SPL token, and I will drop a link of how to install it real quick. If you go to solana.com/docs, under the installation page, if you just install all these things, you should be good to go. Basically, if you curl this right here, everything will install and you'll be good to go. If not, you can install them one by one. So here's like a different set of dependencies. So if you're interested in following along, you can run this and you're good to go from there. So let's make a token. So it's very easy. Just Solana, SPL token, create token, enter, and boom, I have a token. That is all you need to do to create a token. And this is created under token keg, and it has this address. So if you go over to Explorer, I'm on local. So if you go to local, go look up that token. I have a token. Now it doesn't have any information on it because I didn't add it, but the token exists and it doesn't have any amount, but I can create the amount with the same commands. So that's how easy it is to build a token. Now let's go into even more stuff that you can do with these tokens and some potential ideas that you can do for this hackathon with stablecoins. So first off, this is this. Let's go to Solana pay.com. Is this just going to redirect? Okay, cool. Um, so is the VS Code supposed to be in the screen shared? Oh, am I not screen sharing the whole thing? Glad someone made a mention of that. This one. All right, cool. Can you see this now? All right, so this is just what I messed up. You got to run this. There you go. It's just SPL create token. I can copy and paste that into Zoom chat. Once you install with that first link, this is all you need to press. All right. So first off, Solana Pay. So Solana Pay is basically allowing you to do like stablecoin payments with your point of sale systems. So basically, like you go, some of y'all are in Texas, so you go to your Whataburger, you go up to your payment thing, and you basically tap to pay or something. That's your point of sale. Let's say you do a tap to pay, or you do like Apple Pay. You just so tap to pay, or you scan a QR code. The QR code part is a lot with what Solana Pay does. So if you're familiar with paying different amounts on in crypto using QR codes, you can use Solana Pay, and every single wallet is integrated with Solana Pay. So you can use this to do payments very easily. And ideas that you can do with this is potentially make a point of sale system, or you can make something with a Raspberry Pi with a screen or something. Like you can use the Shopify plugin because there's already a plugin for it to make a store. You can make reproducible stores. So here's a bunch of stuff like ideas of something that you can build with this. And you can follow this doc basically of how to use a Shopify plugin to get started. So it's actually quite simple. So that's one thing. Another thing is you can do what's called blinks and actions. So what if you've seen this on Twitter, I'll just show you an example of this, is that on Twitter, there are these things called blinks. They're blockchain links that allow you to interact with your Solana installed wallet. So you can see I have a few here. And if I click this, let's see what happens actually. It'll load up my wallet and try to do a transaction. And this is integrated within Twitter itself. So this is just another thing that you can build. You can go to the Blinkzone actions. So I'm going to post this in the chat as well, and you can build with it. There's tons of different things you can do with this. You can make, once again, stores. You can make payment systems. You can do uh, the prediction markets. Like anything with stablecoins is fair game for this different bounty. So definitely try this out. If you go through this doc, it should have everything that you need to get started. All right. So we have this. Let me just delete these. All right. And then finally, if you want something that you can build upon that already exists, there is a full, quite a long tutorial of how to build multiple different things on Solana. So this is part two. This is the projects 10 through 13. Project 11 is basically, we call it programmable money, but it's a decentralized stablecoin. We literally give you the code to build a decentralized stablecoin and the front end for building it. So if you go through this, and also if you go to the GitHub, so let's go to the GitHub, you can use this to build a new project using stablecoins, or in this case, a decentralized stablecoin like MakerDAO, in order to build something new on Solana. This is an example. It's a pretty thorough example. So I gave you the link to the YouTube video originally. What I recommend is kind of like going through the whole end to end. Otherwise, you're going to have some general
Decentralized finance.
misunderstanding of how it works.
DeFi refers to financial applications built on decentralized networks. The main goal of DeFi.
Someone's listening to the video. Cool. But so this has a lot of code, and I don't want to scare you all with all this code. Uh, so we're going to do something a little bit simpler, and I'm going to show you how to build programs on Solana, um, or smart contracts for most people before you get into these harder things, just as a kind of like an initialize way to initialize yourself. By the way, if anybody has any questions at any point in time, just drop it in the chat. I know I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff. Um, all right. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a voting application. Now, I already have it written here. So instead of just doing a live coding session, which is boring for most people, you did this today, probably in your classes. I'm just going to explain the code and then we can play with it. And I can show you how to build very quickly yourself with this tool. So this tool is called Solana Playground. Whoops. You can use this to build Solana smart contracts and test them. If you're familiar with Remix on Ethereum, this is how you can do Remix on Solana. All right, so let's go through like the general what this looks like, and I can explain why it looks like that as well. Let's also pull up a Scala draw. All right, so whenever you're thinking of building let's see, I have a bunch of different diagrams here, but whenever you're thinking of building a specific if you're thinking of building a new program on Solana, you usually want to build like an architecture diagram for it before you actually start building. So for voting application, let's think of what that is. If you want to vote, you have to have these candidate accounts. Um, these are basically everything's account on Solana. You can think of these kind of like objects or variables. Uh, and in those objects, you have specific data that you can collect. So everything is a candidate for a voting program. Just call this. All right, so we'll have a candidates and they will be linked to also a different account, which will be the poll, right? And so given a specific poll has a list of candidates on it, so there can be multiple candidates, right? Um, and you can vote for them on who you think is the winner. And whenever you vote for them, this candidate could have something like votes on it. It can have some information like description, name, etc. So this is just an object of candidate. There's a bunch of them. They're linked to a poll. This is just to kind of like showcase how to think of Solana development. All right, so let's go to Solana Playground. So if you look at this, there are multiple different accounts. And so we have the candidate account, which has your votes, your name, and this is you always have to set up your objects like this. So this is basically just an account on Solana. We have also the poll account, and in that poll we have what the name of the poll is. This could be the presidential election, whatever you feel like naming it. This is a poll start and end date, so whenever the poll is actually live, and this is just for optimization. I can explain this later, and then some error codes. So that exactly kind of maps into this, where you have candidates, which have a poll, and that's the whole thing. So there you go. Any questions before I continue from anybody? Cool. All right. So now we'll go into a little bit more information. Um, so, so given, let's, whenever you do a Solana program, the first thing you usually do is to initialize all the accounts. So we have all these accounts, we want to create them. So this initialize poll function instruction just pulls in a bunch of information that you're used to giving in normal development, and we'll set them into your poll account, which is in your context. All right. And then part of this is that every single time that you make an instruction, you're going to create a context for the accounts that are required for this instruction. So if you as you get familiar with Solana, you'll know that system program is always needed to create new accounts. Signer is needed if you're ever creating new accounts as well. And then we have the poll account. And this is where I'm going to explain some of these things right here, to help you understand Solana development a little bit better. So first, in and if needed. This is basically just saying create this account if it doesn't already exist. It's a very simple function. Who's going to pay for this account? It's the whoever signed the transaction. Now, this is always going to get into kind of confusing, but the what this is saying is that what is the size of that specific account? Because we always have to pay for the size in bytes for that account on chain. So what you end up doing is you do 8 plus the size of the account. 8 is because it's Anchor. Anchor is a framework on Solana. If you're interested, I'll put in before I forget. The Anchor docs for learning Solana development are right here. But this is just to set the space. So this is where we're going to go into something a little bit more interesting, is that we have something called seeds. This basically is saying, given a poll ID and the word poll, this is how you find the account. So this is a concept called PDAs. So let's just PDAs. So given some seeds, let's actually, I'm going to put them in a different, I'll just do this. So given some seeds, which is kind of like, all right, given some seeds, it points to an account. And in this case, it is the poll account. So you can kind of look at this like a hash map or a map where given some key, you get some value. This is used in Solana to kind of create both maps and just a relationship on chain. So if you look at this, given a poll ID, I get a poll account. So the poll ID is the key, the value is the account. That's the whole thing basically. And then bump is just needed because PDAs have something called a bump, um, which bumps them off curve. So basically, PDAs you don't have a private key to them, so the bump basically makes it to where they don't have a signer key. It bumps them off the cryptographic curve. All right, so that's everything here, and you can see here that I'm just initializing by setting all the information and setting an OK. So in general, this is like everything that you do on Solana on smart contract. Now, note, you don't have to do smart contracts for this. You can write in TypeScript, and there's plenty of information how to write TypeScript out there. But if you want to write like a decentralized stablecoin project like this one, this is how you get started. And the same thing you can see initialize candidate. It's literally just an add, and then the vote will just check, hey, is current time within the boundary? If it is, add a candidate. So it's very simple, right? It's not it's not the hardest thing, but that is the majority of Solana development. If you do smart contracts, I would just recommend building out an architecture diagram to help you understand, hey, what the heck am I about to build before actually building it. On the flip side, if you want to do JavaScript or something, Solana Pay, actions and blinks, you can build all sorts of things without even touching Rust. You can do it fully in TypeScript. Any questions? Is the user account same as the wallet address? Uh, are you talking about for the signer in here?
Yeah, the sort of poll account that he created.
So the poll account is not going to be the same as the wallet address, but it is an address. So all accounts have addresses on chain, um, and so the poll account will have an address. The wallet account will also have an address. Wallet accounts are special in that they're created by the system. They're I believe owned by the system program versus this poll account will be created within this program's context and should be owned by this program. All right. So let's get into some of this just so that makes your life a little bit easier. Um, oh boy, I just realized I created kind of a complex one. All right. So we have some initialized poll. So if you're familiar also with the, what is it? If you're familiar with Remix, you can use this to build and deploy programs just like Remix as well. So you just hit build, it'll build your program. If you're familiar with running and compiling Rust locally, usually compiling Rust takes forever. This one doesn't take too long, but it's pretty quick. And then you can just deploy uh, using this deploy button. And this is deploying to DevNet. DevNet is basically our QA environment, our quality assurance environment on Solana. If you do need DevNet Sol, there is a faucet. So you can go to faucet.solana.com. Just insert you have to log into GitHub, put your wallet address, and then request. Cool. So we have deployed. And what I can do now is I can actually test this to do things on Solana. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put a 0 for the poll. Start time will be the beginning of time itself. End time, let's just grab some Unix time. Let's figure out what now is and add like some crazy large number. All right. End time, and we'll make this an 8. So it's like way in the future. Name, we'll do a custom with uh, Jacob. Description, some desk. Cool. And so we have this, and then the poll count. You can see here that it would be a poll count that would be derived. So we have to do some from seed, and the seeds will be poll, and the second seed will be, this is a, what is this? It's just bytes. So this is going to be, oh boy, let's find out if I can do this based off of memory. Let's just do custom, and how do I change this? There we go. Custom, it will be 0. Is that what I set the poll is? Yeah. Yeah, poll ID is 0. All right, let's see if I can do this correctly. And if I did it right the first time, no, I screwed up the seeds. All right. Well, what's fun is if you're actually developing on Solana, this will be auto filled in whenever you're using the JavaScript client. This is just like for debugging, and I am not remembering exactly how to do this right off the top of my head. That's okay. All right, so string, let's just see if I can do one last crack at it before we throw in the towel here. Yeah, I do not remember how you do unit, or sorry, U64. All right, but yeah, so you can run this and just hit test and it'll run, or we can show this real quick. Um, you can basically create a test for it, which is just JavaScript. You can see this created a test real quick that will do a bunch of, it will do an airdrop. It'll confirm your transaction, get balance, and you can add more information. Cool. Any other questions? I didn't expect to take the full time, but I wanted to give you all the information in order to get started. Any questions on Solana at all? I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, I'll go ahead
Yeah.
and go for it, Jay.
Um, yeah, okay, so this might sound like a dumb question or whatever, but I've can you like for like a Web 2 dev or whatever, for like a Web 2 dev like coming new into the space, like all this is kind of like I would kind of say like new to me in a way or kind of like confusing.
Hmm.
And how, because one thing I never really understood about like the space in general is like what kind of how to like incorporate all this into like projects that like could actually be used. Like how do I like put this into how can I use like this technology? Because like it looks good honestly, but like how do I put this into like a project that actually is in like useful and like that I know people will use or like that actually solves a problem that I can achieve with typical Web 2 dev tools.
Okay.
Can you answer that? Yeah.
Got it. So stablecoins is actually a very good challenge for this type of thing as well, because stablecoins solve a lot of problems that are currently not solved with general Web 2 tech. A great example of stablecoin usage is cross-border payments with almost zero fees. So if you're trying to send your mother in Italy or something money cross borders, you're going to take quite a hefty percentage off of the amount of money that you're sending her through the different fees that incur to send money cross border. Versus if you use USDC, which is a stablecoin on Solana, it's instant, it's very cheap, less than a cent to transfer, and you can. And then your mother can use the services there to offboard on into whatever balance that they need to uh, which usually is also very cheap. So that's a problem that's solved immediately today with stablecoins. Also, remittances, right? Remittances are also used today with stablecoins. Another thing with cross-border payments is that payment rails for crypto, especially stablecoins, are used today by companies that you know and love, PayPal, Visa, etc. They use these as basically their settlement layer of, hey, I sent money from A to B across the world. I did this in stable coins on Solana, and then I wait, like that's my balance checker versus having to send through all this other nonsense of Web 2. Especially if you do like a wire transfer, it can take a long time versus crypto's instant, especially Solana.
Um, yeah, I get that. Thank you. So okay, for example, let's just go over like what we did here today.
Hmm.
So this, the Rust file we have here and the TypeScript one we have here, what like, and maybe I really wasn't following, but like what were we doing? What
Okay,
like
so
what were we doing and how did it turn out?
Okay, so here what I was doing is I was creating a poll with candidates that you can vote for. So you know the voting problem today in across the world is that a lot of them have to like, especially in the US, a lot of them are like manually counting votes.
Yeah.
Um, and you could technically do like some technical solution, but then there's also like one person who owns that solution, and that gets, especially in like elections in the US, it's a little like it gets a little bit scary sometimes because you're like, okay, who can I trust? to hold these votes. You could maybe trust
Uh,
the US government, but they're also not the best at tech. So
yeah.
they might screw that up. So in this case, I'm building a voting program that's on chain that allows people to vote for candidates. And so it's immediately quantifiable of what are the votes for the candidates in different spaces, as well as if say the US government decided to make so in this like PDA thing, your seeds is maybe your social security number or something, and that gives
Mhm.
you access to your wallet that you can use to vote for this a candidate account. Given
Uh,
that specific thing, suddenly you yourself, as a U.S. citizen, can vote, and your vote is immediately counted, and you can see this all happen within a blockchain. And so you're removing the trust of a system and the worry of having to trust a system, and you're making it to a point where there's no one person that owns the system, and everybody can verify that the data is true. There are other cases of this that a lot of people like to use. Like, great, let's give an example of something else but built in blockchain that removes like the trust in the system. Um, so there's a project called Helium, um, Solana. Yeah, so this is just the docs. So Helium on Solana, what they do is it's basically uh, it's a network on Solana that what they do is they allow you to buy these like low RAN antennas to give hotspots for people walking through your city to connect to with their phone. So what do we use today on Web 2? We have see someone uses Helium as their phone plan. It's kind of crazy that you can do this. But let's say what you do with general Web 2 technology is you have AT&T build these crazy large uh, phone towers that
yeah.
have like a huge space, and you pay them an absurd amount of money to use their service to get internet. Great, because they had to do all of that. What Helium does is allows these people to run these little things called hotspots that are lower. They're not like the crazy. They don't have the crazy high surface area that the cell phone towers have, but they allow people to connect to them. If there's enough of them, you won't lose any coverage at all. Like for example, and so you have these people using these hotspots that basically give a phone plan to people in the area. And as you, as a customer of maybe Helium hotspots, walks through that city, you're connecting to these multiple hotspots. And what happens is every time you connect, there's like a handshake, and you pay via crypto for using that person's hotspot. And it ends up being because you cut out the middleman of AT&T or Verizon or whatever, you end up paying a lot less. Like I believe Helium's what is it? What is Helium's current phone plan? Something like $10 or $20 a month. Um, so these are the little hotspots, right? Um, where's the? I don't see where they have the payment thing, but you end up. It's probably under use. Nope, I was under. I don't know their app so as well as the rest of it. There you go. Someone got 30 gigs of data for $20 basically a month. So you can basically pay a lot less for your phone plan, and you remove anything else. Uh, I don't want to go through their whole setup. But yeah, this is one problem. Another thing, let's give another one that's even like more cool and like a generally an
So wait,
amazing project.
sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
How does Helium use like the Solana blockchain to achieve that?
Yeah, so
You
the
said like or like mainly just for like payment.
it's for payments as well as like you register your Helium hotspot so people can find it, and then they can verify that this is not like some other thing that's not like real because
Okay.
they can verify it on the blockchain basically. And then you as a customer have your pub key and you can sign it so people know that you are real as well.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Um, so here's another one that's really cool. So double zero is probably the best, is probably one of the coolest things in tech right now. It's not .com, it's .xyz. Let's see. Um, no, not double XYZ. I'm gonna run into some like random site that I do not want to run into if we don't watch it. XYZ. All right, so let's talk about double zero. 00 is calls themselves a new faster internet. All right, so let's kind of like talk about 00 and how it solves a problem with crypto for the world. Like this is something that maybe everyone might use one day and you won't even know it. So what they do is they solve a problem with bandwidth. So what today you have 18 different companies that own the fiber cables across the world. And so if you're trying to play a video game and they're hosting a server, you say you're in the US and they're hosting in Singapore, you're always using the fiber cable that goes from LAX, or not LAX, from California out to Singapore, right? Say China decides to cut those cables because they do this quite often. They just go undersea and they start cutting cables because it's part of their thing right now. Suddenly, you have to go the opposite direction around the world, and it takes a lot longer, and you have higher latency. And so, you as a gamer, you would feel the latency, but then think about traders, like actual people that are trading on NYSE or trading global markets, people that are need low latency, high bandwidth requirements in order to
Yeah.
basically make their money. So what 00 does is, hey, 00 realizes, hey, there's a lot of people with undersea fiber cables that are private undersea water fiber cables because these people are bought them knowing that we need these high bandwidth, low latency requirements. And so they put them in themselves. They paid the hundreds of millions of dollars, but then they're also not using the full bandwidth of the cable because it's like, okay, I put it in there and I'm not using the full bandwidth, so I'm losing money, right? What they said is 00 saying like, hey, we have all these people with private underwater sea cables and just general fiber cables. What if you could sell the bandwidth on them? And then through that, create a market for this unused bandwidth on additional cables that if a cable goes down that hosts the literal internet of the world, you will have a way to route and still get high speed connections around the world through these private connections. So 00 uses Solana to allow people to basically create a market for this bandwidth connections, and you have people like Jane Street, Jump Trading, like a bunch of these high frequency trading firms contributing their bandwidth to 00, and then they buy on the market so that they can get access to other people's bandwidth, say their cables are not working or they don't have a specific cable. And so what ends up happening is the way that 00 kind of works is you run a node, and that node, if you do the payment, it basically is the node that you run your traffic to in order to get access to that specific uh, fiber cable that will decrease your latency by 10x or whatever, or even just tens of milliseconds because that's what they're playing at. And that is all using Solana tech to do that. That's literally what it's doing today. Um, it's a really cool project, and it's run by some people that helped create the original internet as well, which laid the first underwater sea fiber cables. So this is another thing that using crypto, they were able to do this. And what's cool is like, you might say, okay, why can't I do this with like a Web2 tech company where I go work with all these companies to create a market for it elsewhere? Um, so if you want to do that, what ends up being is you have to have partnership agreements. You have to go through all this legal hullabaloo, right? To add people to this network. And then also there's like there'll be cap agreements, and no one can it's basically dead on arrival because of all the legal stuff. Because these high frequency trading firms have so much legal mumbo jumbo to deal with to get to running or to get to any type of yes, we're going to sign on the dotted line. And especially if they have to do legal agreements with other high frequency trading firms, it'll never happen. Like we're speaking like if it may be in 10 years. So the other thing is that 00 is permissionless to join and offer your fiber cables. So what you do is you just add your node to the network and you say, I'm offering this fiber cable with this connection. If you buy it, you can route your traffic through me to do it. And then being that everything's on the blockchain, and everybody that's using it and paying for it has a history. What ends up happening is you have people that are telling the truth as well. Because if you have someone that joins the network and say their latency is not what it says, well, it's all recorded there. You can see it all from the node information, and it will all be on the blockchain, and they'll get kicked out of the market. So you're incentivized to give low latency requirements, and you can join it permissionlessly. So it does not take any like partnership agreements or legal mumbo jumbo to get to this project. So this is like a really cool use case of crypto today that does something that general tech cannot.
Thank you very much. That was a good explanation.
I'm happy to take any other questions.
I'll go ahead and ask a more personal question.
Go
How'd
for it.
how'd you go from graduating to A&M to working in Solana?
So in between that, I worked as a software engineer, but so there was some time in between that. But so I worked as a software engineer, and I worked at actually Capital One, a big financial bank or whatever. Um, what they did is they taught me to be a software engineer. What I ended up doing is I was spending all my time contributing to crypto, all my free time basically, contributing to crypto and building in public. So what's really important, especially as you build in this hackathon, is build in public, share what you're building, and people will notice you. And that's how you increase your opportunity space for your future career. So myself, I was building in public, I was contributing to multiple projects, and I eventually got noticed by like Anatoly, who's the founder of Solana, one of the founders, or what was then my boss, Chase Barker. And they all noticed me contributing, and they're like, "Hey, you're doing some really cool stuff. Would you like to come work for us?" And I said, "Absolutely," because that's basically turning my free time into a full-time job. And it's just because I was sharing what I was working on and being excited about and passionate about what I was working on as well. And so I turned what I did on all my free time to my full-time job. I've been here for 3 years since, and it's been great. So,
Awesome. Kind of to follow up on that, how would you say as a student at university, what are some tasks or things you would recommend, tips to becoming a Web3 developer aside from building in public? What would you recommend if some of these students are looking to get a job in Solana? And maybe
um,
some of those resources on where they can apply.
yeah. So my first thing is just try everything. Go and like build, like, just try everything that exists in Web3. You'll find out that even if you don't get a job, it'll be very lucrative for yourself, because crypto is kind of funny that way. But try like every application, understand what the space offers. Um, Also, like as I said, build in public. And then if you want to try for jobs, there's plenty of them. There's like 400 jobs. It's jobs.solana.com. There's 400 jobs. These are just not from Solana Foundation, Solana Labs, Onza, or whatever. This is from just all over the ecosystem companies. And there's even more than that because these are all the only ones that like people reached out to us and used it. Um, so like people, you just need to talk. Like the big thing is just talking about what you're building. Um, Go come up with a project. If you go through this boot camp that I mentioned, talk about what you're building. Like talk about the projects that you're building and what you learned. It doesn't matter. Like you might think it's dumb or something because it really feels like that when you first start sharing about what you're building. You're like, everybody knows this. Why am I sharing it? Some people don't, and they just want a piece of the knowledge that you have in order to get started. And so that's really important. You share your work to increase your opportunity. Aaron Francis, who is another developer educator, he's not on Solana, but he does like Postgres stuff. He says it's like share your work and increase your luck. Um, it's very important. In fact, there's share your work increase. Let me just find it. I don't know if y'all ever want to, but there's an amazing talk by him that basically explains everything that you need to do to get started, like in any tech. Like I would recommend this outside of Solana as well. Um, to answer also the question that like I've heard several times that Twitter is the equivalent LinkedIn Web3 space. How do you leverage Twitter to network and access opportunities? You share your work on it. You talk about what you're doing. You explain, hey, I learned how to build a voting application today. This is what I did. And then you just explain the not like it might seem dumb to you or it might seem easy to you, but someone out there does not know what you know and they want to know what you know. And so that's how you get noticed in the space, is contributions and sharing what you talk about. I would highly recommend the YouTube video that I just posted. It's a talk by N3XUS about this whole concept of sharing your work. And it goes through his journey, where he wasn't sharing his work. He was just doing whatever. Started sharing his work and got noticed by founders of multiple companies. So this is outside of crypto. So in general, share your work, increase your opportunity, increase your luck, as he says, and don't like give up on that. His talk is very good because it showed him like he sharing his work, and he got invited to go to like GitHub's annual conference, and he was giving a talk there, and no one was in the audience. And he's like, I did not give up here though. I kept sharing, and now this is where I ended up, which he runs a company of his own that's very profitable at this point, and he's doing great. Um, that's what I'd recommend for anybody here, like not just in crypto, in tech. Share your work, increase your opportunity, get noticed. This is kind of like you can think of like who do I know in tech and why do I know them? It's because they share their work. Like if you follow like Primogen, Pirate Software, N3XUS, all these people are just sharing their work on Twitter, on social media. They're saying, this is what I built today. This is what's really cool that I did today. And people notice them. And now those are probably considered some of the most valuable developers out there because they might get any job. I will say Solana, like it helps you get connected with everybody because they'll be like, oh, I did this once. I'd love to do that. And you might learn about that. And then Solana's great as like a new developer is because as a new developer, especially someone that's out of college, you want to be around some of the best developers in the world. And Solana absolutely has some of the best developers in the world. Kevin Bowers, who runs a project called Fire Dancer on Solana, is probably one of the top 10 developers in the world because in early 2000, he's like known as like the first guy who broke Moore's law by creating hardware that was faster than what Moore's law predicted. And he presented this as a supercomputer in Lisbon in 2001. So like you can work with the best developers in the world through Solana. If you share it, you can connect to them, like increase your opportunity. Don't just keep everything into yourself because you'll notice like all these people that, hey, they might be not as good as you at software development, but they're sharing what they do and they're getting these opportunities and it might feel unfair. The only way to deal with that is to not complain about it, but actually just share about what you're doing too. Sorry, long rant on that one. Any other questions? Coolio. Well, if there's anything that people have questions on, you're welcome to DM me on whatever platform that you feel like it. I'm this guy on Twitter. If you have Telegram, I'm Jacob Creech. If you have Discord, I'm also Jacob Creech. Um, I have DMs open on everything. You're welcome to message me. Do message what you're messaging me about, not just hi, because I get a lot of just random highs. Um, and I'm happy to help you out, like finding the right resource, uh, giving you ideas on your project or feedback on your project. And like if anything else, like you're welcome to DM me questions there too. Cool.
Awesome, Jacob. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to educate some of the members that are participating in this, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they build on Solana.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Good luck, everyone.
All right. So real quick, I'm gonna give some updates. I'm gonna give you all the PO app too for attending the or the workshop for y'all for the onboard and educate bounty or whatever. So if y'all want to collect that, I'm gonna share my screen right now. There's that. Y'all scan that, and then if you go on Zeally, connect your wallet to it, you can approve that you participate in this workshop, and then collect your XP for the other bounty we have for that. And then aside from this, the actual Solana bounty that Kevin talked briefly about is going until the beginning of Colosseum. Colosseum's like a huge opportunity for y'all. That's what got me developing into Solana. They're gonna have their own university track that you can actually carry your Nexus project to, and this has over 650K in prizes. It starts April 14th and it's gonna end on May 16th. Great opportunity. They have opportunities for like investments and venture fund and stuff like that. Like I really, really recommend y'all to participate in that if this really interests y'all. So aside from that, we'll if y'all have any questions about the hackathon, feel free to shoot them my way. And then yeah. All right. With that said, we'll close it off. I appreciate y'all coming and hope to see y'all build.